learned what a hot link is. Didn't know what I was dealing with in El Paso. I come out to Pittsburg and I do. We are gonna have some real ones after this. I want to thank Jay for kicking us off with that infectious energy, making sure that we all have the power that we need at this moment of truth. I want to thank Dolores for running, for making sure that she's putting herself out there for this position of public trust that can do so much good for Camp County, for everybody who's here, and to each one of you for taking some time out on a Thursday to welcome us back to this community. And I especially want to thank our hosts at the Frederick Douglass Alumni Association. Jay was just talking about the fact that this used to be a school in this community. And it was a good school, someone said. And I gotta, if you'll indulge me, I've got to tell you a story. We also have a Frederick Douglass School in El Paso, Texas. And in 1954, young woman graduated. Her name was Thelma White from Frederick Douglass High School in El Paso. It happened to be the only high school she was allowed to attend. She was a black woman in Texas in 1954. She graduates at the top of her class, valedictorian. Applies for admission at Texas Western College. It's now called the University of Texas at El Paso, but she applies for admission at Texas Western College, and because of the color of her skin, she is denied. So she takes her case to the local federal bench, pleads her case, loses her case, appeals her case, and the judge who hears it, with the help of a little-known attorney named Thurgood Marshall, ends up not only integrating through his decision Texas Western College, but all of public higher education in the entire state of Texas. And it doesn't stop there. Now that anyone can apply, and if you meet those qualifications, enter Texas Western College, our ability to draw talent for academic pursuit, for teaching, for improving our community, our state, and our country, it grows exponentially. The ability to attract talent to also play on our sports teams at Texas Western College also grows. We're able to successfully recruit Velvet James Bad News Barnes. He plays for Texas Western College for Coach Don Haskins. When he graduates from Texas Western College, he is the #1 draft pick in the United States of America, picked up by the New York Knickerbockers. More people follow who, when Don Haskins, the coach at Texas Western, calls him up, they say, Coach Haskins, with all due respect, I'm not moving from Chicago or New York or New Jersey or Ohio down to Texas where I've got to sit in the back of the bus, where I can't go to the movie theater, where I'm denied my equal rights as a human being in this state and in this country. And Haskins says, not only have we integrated Texas Western College, but our El Paso City Council has just passed an ordinance, the first in the former Confederacy, to integrate places of public accommodation. So you can not only come here, not only learn at a great university, not only play for a great coach, you're going to be treated as equal as anybody else in the community. With that promise, Haskins builds the best basketball team in the country, bar none. They take it all the way to the Final Four, the championship game in March of 1966. They upset the University of Kentucky with an all-black starting five who wins the Cinderella story of our lives. That happened because Thelma White had the courage, had the conviction of her courage, was willing to challenge the status quo, to overcome those who would stop her from being exactly who she wanted to be over the course of her life. It all started at a Frederick Douglass school, just like this one, in a part of Texas that is as far west as we can get from where we are today and still be in the same state. So we've got something in common here. I was knocking on doors before I had the chance to come in and see you. I love to do this in every community I come to meet some of the folks who aren't going to come out, but who I want to learn from, listen to, understand what's most exciting to them, what concerns them the most. The first person to answer her door says, hold on a second, let me go in and get a mask. I just had a kidney transplant, and I want to make sure that I'm safe. And I said, absolutely, and I'm impressed that she even wants to talk to me at all. So she goes to get her mask. She brings her son out with her. They stand at the porch, at a respectful distance from one another. And I said, tell me how you're doing. Were you able to get that kidney transplant here in Pittsburgh? And of course, she was not able to. She did that in Dallas. I don't know how many towns in Texas could support a kidney transplant. And I know that you have a good hospital here. And she said that. She said, you know what? I get pretty good care here apart from that transplant. And I said, what else can we be doing better here in Pittsburgh? And she said, you know what? There's probably a lot that we can do. But Beto, I want to tell you this. Since I became ill, and after having this transplant, I have not been able to work. But the church that I go to, every member of it has pitched in to make sure that we have the resources in my home to meet the mortgage note, to put food on the table, to take care of ourselves, to allow me to buy the medication that otherwise would be unaffordable. She said, I want you to know that Pittsburgh is a good place, full of good people who look out after one another. And I love that because, and I never asked her if she's a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or any of that stuff. I didn't want to know what differences might lie between us. I wanted to understand where the common ground was. And I love that she laid it out there for me right in front of her front door. And just think about that as the contrast to the people that we have in power today. The people who are going to say, I want you to be afraid of these folks over here. These immigrants who are coming in to get you, to get us, to take our jobs, to steal our benefits. Watch out for those gay people. And don't you dare say that word in a public school. In fact, they're filing a Don't Say Gay bill at the start of the next legislative session. And if you're raising kids who happen to be transgender, we will pursue you for child abuse. Take that child and every other kid in your house away from you. Turn them over to Child Protective Services, which is struggling already to take care of 32,000 kids already in their care. If you're a woman, don't you dare try to make your own decisions about your own body or your own future or your own health care. And the way I thought about it as I was listening to this woman who defies the current political leadership that we have and reflects who we really are at our core, at our essence, and certainly at our best, as does the community of Pittsburgh, is that, in Greg Abbott's Texas, it's you or me. In our Texas, it's you and me, right? It's all of us together doing better by and for one another. That's who we are. That's who we are. And so listen, if you are a Democrat, I'm glad you came. If you are a Republican, I want you to know you're in the right place. Independents, you're welcome here as well, because listen, we don't want to just serve some people in the state of Texas. We want to serve and do well for all of the people in the state of Texas, right? Let me talk about some people that I think we can do a better job for right now. Though we are the 9th largest economy on the face of the planet, a $2 trillion with a T GDP, a biennial budget that's $250 billion a year. Despite the number of men and despite the number of women who have served this country in uniform, who did everything we asked them to do in World War II, in Korea and Vietnam, the first Persian Gulf War, Iraq, Afghanistan, and all these other places that we neglect to think about and remember or recall, like Yemen and Somalia and Syria. Everywhere we send our fellow Americans out into harm's way, they go out and put their lives on the line for all of us. They swear an oath not to the president of either party, but to the Constitution, to our democracy, to our way of life. And listen, if we're honest with each other, we would not be here but for their service and their sacrifice and their struggle. So I ask you, in this state that has such wealth, that has riches that surpass almost any other place on the planet, why will there be veterans tonight who will be sleeping under a bridge, along the side of a road, in a public park? Hundreds, thousands of them across this great state in our 254 counties. Why must those who come back from Iraq and Afghanistan have to negotiate, deal, argue with, and very often lose against the VA when they say, listen, I was exposed to God only knows what in that toxic burn pit. And now when I come back to this community in Pittsburgh, I'm having a hard time breathing here. Can you help me? And the Vietnam veteran steps up and he says, you know what, buddy? I waited 40 years for my exposure to Agent Orange to be treated as a presumptive condition for the cancers that my buddies died of, for the abnormalities that my kids were born with. And I'm not going to wait 40 years. I'm going to fight for you right now. That's why we're going to stand up a toxic burn pit registry right here in the state of Texas. Get every veteran exposed to it on that list. Connect them with the care that they need. We're going to spare no expense. We will lift every burden in front of us to make sure that every veteran has a roof over their head. They have a house and a home. Once you have that, pursuing a job, getting access to health care, raising your kids, going to work, starting a business, all of that becomes more possible. And in a community where I understand, and you all, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you in a second, tell me if I'm wrong, where I understand it's particularly hard to get in to see a mental health care provider. The number of psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, therapists is closer to 0 in this community than it is to 10 in this community. For veterans who are contemplating taking their own lives in a country that loses 20 to 22 of them a day by suicide, every single day in America. We have got to do better when that is compounded by the fact that we have an opioid crisis because the VA is all too willing sometimes to prescribe an opioid to you, even though we know that you may become addicted to it and you may die from it. And for some reason, when you tell us that it's actually cannabis or marijuana that relieves your symptoms, allows you to sleep, gives you an appetite, makes life bearable for you, we treat you as a criminal under the law. That's why when we win, we're going to legalize marijuana in the state of Texas. We're going to expunge the arrest records of anybody incarcerated for possession of a substance that's legal in the rest of this country. We're going to do right by one another. To the school teacher, the school counselor, the school librarian, to those who support public education in the state of Texas, I'm here to tell you that I've got your back and I'm going to fight for you. You've told me right here in Camp County, the teacher on average is underpaid by, get this, $16,000 a year against the national average. Not to be the highest paid teacher in America, just to get to average. And if we're anything in Texas, we are not average. We want to be the best. We want to offer the greatest opportunities to our kids. But try keeping a teacher on the payroll in these underserved communities when we don't step up to make sure that they have the money to not have to work a second or a third job or even leave the profession altogether. I've listened to you. I hear you, and I'm going to follow your lead. This is what we're going to do after together we win this election. We're going to start paying teachers enough so they only work one job, focusing on that child in front of them in that classroom. We're going to listen to them when they say these high-stakes tests do nothing to help these kids. We will cancel the STAR test in the state of Texas. We're going to treat those retired teachers with the respect that they earned, a cost of living adjustment every single year that keeps pace with inflation. We're driving you into poverty right now, punishing you for giving us the best years of your life. I can't abide that, and neither can you, so we've got to change it. And then this, 9 weeks after 19 kids were shot with a weapon that was originally engineered and designed for use on a battlefield, intended to penetrate an enemy's helmet at 500 feet and kill him. Those kids with no helmet on their head, not 500, but 5 feet from that shooter, whose parents could only identify them afterwards by the shoes that they were wearing on their feet. 9 weeks after that, and my kids are starting public school sophomore, freshman year at El Paso High, 6th grade at Wiggs Middle in El Paso. Nothing has changed since then to make it less likely that they or their teachers will face the same kind of threat. I want to tell you that I hear you. I'm listening. I'm going to fight for you. And we're going to do the common sense things that can save lives, like a universal background check to purchase a firearm in the state of Texas, a red flag law, so that if you have a firearm and you're threatened to kill the kids in your classroom or the people at work or your girlfriend or your boyfriend, we intervene before it's too late. I don't think anyone, by the way, outside of a battlefield or a war zone should have an AR-15 or an AK-47. But at a minimum, we should raise the minimum age of purchase from 18 years to 21. This shooter in Uvalde, by the way, folks, he patiently waited till he turned 18. Folks say, you know what, criminals won't follow the law, new laws won't make a difference. You know what? I'll concede they won't stop every instance of gun violence. But that guy waited till he was 18 because that was the law. Imagine if he had to wait another 3 years. What could have changed over the course of his life? Imagine if we had a red flag law. He was sending off signals in every direction that he was going to do something like this, so bad that his friends called him the school shooter before he walked into that school and shot those kids. Now listen, we are Texans. We're proud of the Second Amendment. We are going to defend it. We've grown up with an understanding of how to use these firearms and the responsibility that comes with them. When we win this, we're going to do a far better job of both defending the Second Amendment and protecting the lives of the people in our community, especially the kids in those classrooms. You all with me on this? We can do this. We're Texans. For communities that are not as lucky as yours to have a hospital. I was in Clarksville yesterday, and their hospital shut down in 2013. In fact, 16 hospitals in rural Texas have shut down since Greg Abbott was first sworn in to office. In some cases, you've got to drive hundreds of miles in order to be able to see a doctor or have the simplest procedure done for you. Very tough to keep people in your community, to attract young people back to these communities, to keep that teacher who's already underpaid on the payroll when we do not have providers there. How do we meet that challenge? And the other one, which is that we are in a desert of mental health care here in East Texas, where the largest provider of mental health care services today is the county jail system, to the point that in Nacogdoches, a person will stand up and they'll say, hey, you know what? My brother, Beto, with schizophrenia, but without insurance, gets arrested on purpose by a sheriff's deputy because the county jail is the one place he's guaranteed a safe place to lay his head. Maybe, if he's lucky, a prescription of some kind of psychotropic medication that eases his pain. But after a day or two, unfortunately, he's back out on the streets. Well, there's a solution for this. And in fact, Texas came up with this in 1965 with the first Texas president to ever serve this country. The same year that Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act into law, he signed into law Medicaid. And right now there's an offer from our national government that says, hey, Texans, we will give you back the federal income taxes that you paid into us. In fact, we'll give you $10 billion of them back every single year. We'll pay for 90 cents on the dollar for the cost of expansion of Medicaid. You just have to take yes for an answer. We do that. That money comes into communities and counties like Camp. It hires more doctors, connects more people with care, moves us from being 50th in the nation, dead last in access to mental health care, the least insured, number one in the nation for childhood death of diabetes, and so many god-awful things that are unconscionable and immoral for as long as we allow them to happen. But in addition, and the kicker is, it'll lower your property taxes. Because right now, when that diabetic who cannot afford insulin because they don't qualify for Medicaid because we haven't expanded it under Greg Abbott, finally gets too sick, the suffering becomes too great, the pain too much, they will take themselves to the hospital right here. Their care will be excellent, but the outcomes will not be as good as they would have been if they'd had preventative care all along. And the cost will be exponentially greater. Now, they may not have a dime to their name and be unable to pay the bill, but that bill doesn't go away. You pay it, I pay it, and higher property taxes into our county government. Taking Medicaid expansion, that $10 billion a year, saves lives and lowers property taxes. Can you all get behind that idea as well? Can we make that happen? I know we can. Lastly, I talked about young people coming back to our communities. They're going to want to know that we've got access to health care. They're going to know that we've got great schools for their kids to go to because we've gotten behind those great public school educators. They also want to know that there is a job, there is an opportunity here for them. And in a state with a minimum wage that is still $7.25 an hour, in a state that continues to direct the lion's share of resources to the obvious places that always get the resources, including in attracting employers to our communities. The places that always get the highway funding, the broadband internet expansion, the opportunities that create jobs and opportunities for young people to move back. I want to make sure that we get that everywhere. Here's a couple of things that we can do together. And again, this isn't good for Democrats. This is not good for Republicans. This is good for all of us. How about we raise the minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 an hour so no one is working in poverty in the state of Texas anymore? How about we make it easier for you to be able to join a union, to enter an apprenticeship as an electrician or a plumber or a carpenter or a pipe fitter or a steel worker? These are high value, high paying, high skilled jobs. We do not have enough people who are trained and qualified for them. Let's remove cost as an obstacle. Let's make sure that at least your first 2 years of training, either on the job or in a community college, are not costing you debt that you have to take on and pay back afterwards. Let's also make sure that we are supporting our small business owners right here in this community. It's been a tough 2-3 years to be able to get by, right? You had to deal with the pandemic. Many of you lost your customers. Some of you may have lost your location. Some even may have lost their business. You are the lifeblood of the Texas economy. And right now, because of who calls the shots and the tune in our state government, these corporate donors who really pull the strings for Governor Abbott, that's who we're looking out for right now as a state government, when we should be looking out for you, making it easier to hire people, extending services to you, bringing down the cost of owning that business, reducing your property taxes, reducing your utility bills, which are among the fastest growing in the United States of America today. I want the best jobs found in this country to be found right here in Texas, to be created in communities just like this one in Pittsburgh. So when you leave here and folks ask you what we talked about today, say, look, this guy is for all of us. He wants to focus on world-class public schools. He wants to make sure that we have great jobs. He's going to ensure that we do common sense, bipartisan things like expand Medicaid so folks can see a doctor or a mental health care provider or receive treatment for an addiction that they may have. All of us can get behind that. There's going to be a lot that we disagree on, right? No two people will agree on everything all the time, but there's this much common ground right now. Let's seize it. Because on the other side, they want to define us by our differences. They want to sow division and hatred and fear at every turn. That's not who we are. We're not based on or founded on fear. We're founded on hard work and determination and creativity. A state that's big, but big enough for all of us, regardless of our differences. We're going to come together and do great things in Texas again. As I turn the microphone over to you, I'll make this appeal over the course of the conversation. If you care about the things that we're talking about, if you want to make sure that we win on the night of November 8th, I'm going to need your help. We're not going to win this through the candidate alone or the political party to which he may belong. This can only be won by the people of Pittsburgh. And so, in addition to voting and making sure that the people in your life are registered to vote, there are a number of volunteers in the room right now who have these yellow vests on. Just like Vanessa, they're holding up these clipboards where you can sign up to have conversations with your neighbors, with the people who live in this community, just like I did earlier with the woman who just had that kidney transplant. That conversation was one of the best parts of my day for sure. She welcomed me into her life, told me a story that made me even more proud of Pittsburgh, and she also told me that she's committed to voting for us in this next election. Listen, she may not see the television ad that we put on air. She may not follow me on social media. She may not hear the radio spot. She'll never forget that another human being, another Texan, knocked on her door, face to face, eyeball to eyeball, human being to human being. That is powerful stuff. And when you're willing to do that in this community, you're going to bring in the voters who have not been heard from, whose votes have not been counted in previous elections because no one ever invited them in. So if you get a chance before you leave today, please sign up to volunteer with one of these great folks in a yellow reflective vest. We want to make sure that all of us are all in, doing all we can with what we have, where we are. That's who we are as Texans. Looking forward to the conversation with you right now, looking forward to running this race with you, and looking forward to winning on the night of November 8th with you, by you, and for you. Thank you all for coming out. Very grateful to you. Cynthia Cano. All right, Cynthia's got a microphone. If you raise your hand, she'll bring it over to you. We want to take questions from everyone. All we ask is that the questions or the comments or the ideas be offered in the spirit of respect. You don't have to agree with me. We want to make sure we learn from and listen to one another, find that common ground, but let's try to be respectful. Ms. Connell, here you go.
Yes, and if I could add one more thing, if we could keep it to one question per person, I can get to more folks that have a question.
It's a great idea. Great idea.
Hello, my name is Natalie Flores, and I live in Mount Pleasant, Texas. I moved to Tyler probably about 2 years ago, but moved back about 2 months ago. In Tyler, I have started or helped start a nonprofit for, period poverty. Basically, we get donations from the public and stuff, and we donate them to like jails, shelters, etc. What is your stance on combating period poverty?
Did you say period poverty?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that, and everyone else here. I want to make sure I understand what we're talking about.
Period poverty is a lack of access to menstrual products, hygiene facilities, waste management, and education.
Great. Well, first, because you're leading on this issue, first thing I need to do is just follow you and make sure that I understand this better, learn from what you've been able to do in the community so far, and see how we can craft public policy to support more women the same way that you're doing right now. Poverty and fortune and luck and what you have in the bank account or what you're missing from the bank account should not determine your opportunities or options in life, including just being able to take care of yourself. When I think about the fact that, as you just made us aware, that there are many women in Texas who, but for you, cannot do that right now, it means that we can do a better job going forward. But when I think about the fact that that challenge is compounded by the fact that in this state there's now a total ban on abortion with no exception for rape or incest, where women whose very lives may be threatened because they may have to carry unviable pregnancies to term, whose doctors are afraid to give them the right medical device, who might, if they have the resources and privilege and ability, have to travel out of state to be able to make those decisions. That concerns me. That's why we've got to make sure that we win this election and stand up for women to make their own decisions about their own body, their own future, their own choice. Two other things, and bear with me, but I think this is all related. Two other things. A woman on average in this state is paid a fraction of what a man is paid in the state for the same work, or very often at the same employer offering the same value. So making sure that women are truly treated equally in the state is important. And the last thing is childcare. Now, why am I talking about childcare? It is harder to find childcare in this state than it is in almost any other state so far. That means women primarily, sometimes men, are at home with their kids because we have yet to invest in all-day universal pre-K in this state. Their opportunity to earn money, to finish their education, to raise their family, to start a job, to do whatever it is they're on this planet to do in the first place is further compromised. We as Texans lose out on $9 billion a year to our economy because childcare is so hard to find. And as you all know, who either have childcare or are providing childcare providers are some of the lowest paid people in our communities right now. That $15 an hour minimum wage is going to help a lot of them. They are primarily women in our community. So all of this, we've got to do all of this, and that's why winning is so important. Look forward to partnering with you to make sure that we get this done. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Hi there. My name is William Hildebrand. It's nice to meet a fellow El Paso on this side of Texas. I just want to let you all know. I moved here also 2 years ago for a job opportunity during the COVID times. I am a registered Republican, but I'm also a registered Republican that voted for you against who I call Mr. Cancun. And then I also voted for you. I'm also one of the few registered Republicans that actually voted for our current president in the White House. My question to you is, and this is going to be a little, I'm not clueless, but you nailed it on gun control and such, and I support you all the way on that. My question or a plea is that I see these schools across Texas from every district, even our hometown that pass, like there's Letta Bond and such like that, and El Paso Bond and such, that put thousands to millions of dollars to our Texas sports programs and such. But what about money towards our security for schools? You know what I mean? I see a recent article that a school district in Dallas, about $20 million around there towards their district for their sports. But where's the money for security? That's my question.
Thanks for asking this. Listen, we need a governor right now who's going to partner with us at the local level. We got a governor right now who fights with us at the local level, who prevents school districts from making their own decisions. In that super liberal bastion of Paris, Texas in Lamar County, when Greg Abbott was preventing school districts before there was any way to prevent the spread of COVID other than wearing a mask. In Paris, Texas, probably one of the most conservative places in America, if not the planet, that school board had to include masks as part of their dress code. They had to slip in under the radar of Greg Abbott because he was fighting them. In our mutual hometown of El Paso, Texas, we became the deadliest place in America for COVID fatalities over the summer before last, in large part because our county judge had to fight our governor every day. Our judge was trying to keep the people of El Paso County alive because we set up not one, but 10 mobile morgues, so many people dying so quickly in my community. We had to call in the guard to move the bodies, and my judge in my hometown, who knows us better than anybody else, had to fight with our governor who would not allow him to implement the public health safeguards that could have kept people alive. So when it comes to security at schools, the parents at these schools, the teachers, the principal, the administrators, the janitorial staff, the kids, the teachers, they understand what those schools need more than anyone else. Let's listen to them, partner with them, follow their lead. And when it comes to investing resources in public education, in addition to paying those teachers more and making sure that we're improving outcomes when it comes to reading and writing and arithmetic and athletics, as you mentioned, let's also invest in some of the things that some of our rural and underserved communities just don't have, like an arts education, like music education. Like, I met a theater teacher at one of these town halls, and she said, you know what, Beto? You may think this is unrelated, but she made a connection that landed home with me. She said, in theater, we invoke our empathy, and we learn to see things from somebody else's perspective. And when we do that, you're not my enemy because you're a Republican and I'm a Democrat, and you're East Texas and I'm West Texas. We have something in common that is so much more powerful and fundamental than any of those differences. Invest in that theater education in that school as well. But our schools are so underfunded right now. And if you have not heard, you deserve to know that our governor now wants to take your public tax dollars out of your public school classrooms, turn them into vouchers, and send them to private schools at a time that we're already underfunded. So I'm going to fight for public ed, for the security and the safety, yes, but for the full funding of our schools to provide the best possible education in America. Thanks for asking the question. Appreciate it. All right, Ms. Cano.
Yes, me. Hi, nice to meet you in person.
Likewise.
And I'm asking this question because I have two daughters who are teachers. I have not a clue on teaching children in school. But the question they wanted me to put to you is why the state do not pay for their insurance. You know, they work every day, 5 days a week. All summer, during the summer, then you got to go back early for all these different whatever classes they take in the summer to get the teacher prepared. I didn't know you had to take a class to get prepared to teach the next year. Because in my profession, you prepared all the time. But they want to know, you know, your feeling on, you know, why they have to take, they're already not making anything. You know, and why do they have to take the money out of the money that they're already making to pay their insurance? And the state is supposed to be over everything else. They just want to know if you can help them out on that.
Thank you. And please thank your daughters for me and for all of us for what they're doing. Because teachers, for this reason and others that we discussed, are leaving the profession in this state right now by the thousands, if not the tens of thousands. The official statistic is that half of all Texas school teachers leave the profession within the first 5 years. I think that is too conservative. I think it is much, much higher based on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and that my son, as he completed the 5th grade this past June, did not have a permanent classroom teacher the entire year. And when I tell that story, folks' heads are nodding. They're like, you know what? That was my kid in his classroom or her classroom this year as well. You know, God bless the subs for coming in and filling that gap, but we need to hire and retain more of these teachers. Now, when we underpay them, when we treat them with disrespect and don't allow them to teach the story of Thelma White that I just told you, the 1954 graduate of Douglas in El Paso who integrated public education. You know, a teacher may wonder, am I allowed to teach that now because of this fear of CRT and the governor telling me what version of history I can or cannot teach? When you're asked to turn in the parents of the transgender child in your classroom, when you're treated with this level of disrespect, it's no wonder. But then think about the financial toll this takes. I mentioned retired teachers not getting a cost of living adjustment since 2004. There's also something that the retirees in the room have heard about called the Windfall Elimination Provision, WEP. Now, what this says is that if in addition to teaching in your public service, you also worked quarters in the private sector, you paid into Social Security just like every other American, you do not get the money back when you are retired. That is so screwed up. And at some point, we got to go check the tape on this. Maybe teachers in Texas were just getting filthy rich, right, off their retirements, just living by the millions and billions of dollars coming in. And so we had to put this WEP in place. But it's ridiculous. And we got to remove that and ensure that you can earn back from what you paid in. And on insurance, you know, teachers have some of the worst insurance when they do have insurance in the state of Texas. Many of them don't use whatever meager insurance they have because the deductible, the copay, it's just too much. And they just say, the heck with it. I'm just going to try to stay healthy, keep my fingers crossed, hope that I win the lottery. A few years ago in Weatherford, Texas, a school teacher came down with the flu. She did not have the $119 in her bank account, which was the copay for the flu medication that she needed, and she died of the flu in the 21st century in the state of Texas. After giving literally the best years of her life to those kids, she lost her life, not because we lack the resources, but because we have yet to find the political will to step up and be there for her. So, yes, let us improve the health insurance that our teachers need, literally, to be well enough and healthy enough to deliver that education to our kids, in addition to all those other changes that we need to make. Thank you for asking.
Hi, hello.
Good to see you again. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier about the veteran homelessness. I was homeless in Oakland, California for a few years, and I was lucky enough to get the HUD VASH program, and trying to come back here, come back home, take care of my mother. There's no HUD anywhere in our rural areas, especially Wood County. And so I basically had to throw it away. And I was able to get Section 8, but not the real Section 8. Well, I know that's more of a federal level thing, but I was wondering if there is anything on the state level that that you, as our next governor, can help us out with.
Great. Thank you for the question. Thank you also for serving our country and then raising an issue that's important for veterans, important for our state, but is very personal to you. And I think that takes a lot of courage to stand up and say what you just said. We do not have enough housing in the state of Texas. So as you mentioned, even if you've earned that HUD-VASH voucher by serving our country and being willing to lose your life in service to America, there just aren't the homes for that HUD-VASH voucher to be used for. The state of Texas does have a role in that. The state of Texas can offer extraordinary financing for housing to be built in communities that are underserved, for populations that otherwise would be unhoused and be experiencing homeless. Let's make sure that that tax credit housing program extends to veterans, and not just in El Paso and in Austin and in Dallas, in our bigger communities, but also in Wood County and Camp County, and where we saw each other yesterday in Red River County. Let's get that done everywhere. Again, on all these issues, public ed, supporting teachers, getting behind veterans, we have the resources, folks. We have the wealth, we have the money in this state. We just need to direct it towards those who really need it right now, especially when they are serving us in the classroom or out there across the world in the interests of this country. So you've got my commitment to do that. We will partner with the federal government and the VA to get this done the same way we will on that toxic burn pit exposure registry, the same way we will on mental health care access for veterans who can't get into the VA today. We're going to open up state-supported facilities, and we're going to also connect with private providers to get that done wherever you live in the state of Texas. So you did your part for us. Now it's time for us to do our part for you, and we will. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jamar J.J. Jefferson, and I've been outside talking to our fellow Republican brothers and sisters because the thing I love about Beto, he's about unity. He's doing the work that no other governor has done ever, so give him a round of applause.
Thank you, J.J.
And I have a question. My question is this. We know half of the state don't participate in voting. We're so divided and people have lost all hope. As the next governor, I see the work that you're doing and people are paying attention. But what is that nuclear bomb that you're going to drop on the hopeless Texans that are looking for the next leader, which I'm hoping that is you?
Jamar, thank you for being here. And you all know this. I don't know if he said it in his introduction, but he's running to represent this community in the United States Congress. I think he'd make an excellent member of Congress. Every town that I'm in, he's in. He's there before I get there. He's there long after I leave. He really means it. I love that you posed the question in the form of, or the context of our democracy. I keep talking about veterans. I mentioned at the outset we wouldn't be here but for those who are willing to sacrifice, and in some cases did sacrifice their lives for us. We go back to World War II. We think about those men who landed on those beaches in June of '44. All of whom came from Texas, Republicans, Democrats, Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists alike. The differences didn't matter. They all bled red. They were all Americans. Every one of them went over. Not every one of them came back. And why did they go? They went to fight fascism and protect this democracy here at home. Our ability to vote, to freely and fairly choose those who will represent us and serve us, and to hold them accountable. This doesn't happen almost anywhere else in the world or over the course of human history. I mean, it was thousands of years, literally, where democracy was extinct on this planet before it was revived in America in the 18th century. deeply imperfectly, right? You had to be a white man. You had to own property if you were going to vote back then. The franchise was expanded steadily over the time, nowhere more so than during the presidency of the first Texan to hold that office. I mentioned LBJ signing the Voting Rights Act into law in 1965. So to those veterans and those civil rights and voting rights marchers who forced, frankly, LBJ to do the right thing, who gave him the power at the moment that he needed it. And he admitted just as much. In that speech in March of 65, where he convenes a joint session of Congress, he points to John Lewis, who the week before, on Bloody Sunday, at the tender age of 24 years old, attempted to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, was nearly beaten to death for doing so. And Johnson put him in the same line of those who fought at Concord, those who were there at Appomattox, those who were there at every major turn of this democracy. Well, Jamar, we're at a major turn for this democracy because in the state of Texas, it is harder to cast a ballot. It is harder to register to vote here than anywhere else in America. 13% of the mail-in ballots were rejected last March. That was just 4 months ago. 13% of those who tried to vote by mail, their ballots were rejected. And to bring this full circle, one of those ballots that was rejected, a 95-year-old World War II veteran. Tell me there's someone who has earned the right to vote more than that man had. And he couldn't vote in this state, in this very democracy. So how do we bring this home to hope? Well, you were with me yesterday in Clarksville when Patty introduced us, and she used the word hope, but she said, hope can be something passive, like, I hope it gets better. I hope someone comes in and fixes this mess. I hope we don't lose this next election. But she said, hope can be something that you fight for. Hope can be an active verb. And hope for me is all of us taking the time to be here today. You didn't have to. A lot of things going on in your life that may be just as, if not more important. But more than 3 months away from this election, you are here. You have the opportunity to join more than 80,000 people who have already signed up to knock on doors and to meet the very Texans, check this out, who are the targets for that voter suppression and that voter intimidation. These are the people who have been written off and taken for granted, forgotten and left behind. 7 million of them, whose votes we have not counted, whose voices we have not heard, who didn't participate in the 2020 election, arguably the most important one since 1864. Imagine if with the work that we are willing to do, that active hope that we are fighting for, we're on their doors, we're listening to them, we're inviting them into this next election, and they prove to be the margin of victory when we win this on the night of November 8th. That's the hope that I feel right now. Thank you, Jamar, for being here. Grateful to you.
How you doing? I'm Angela Watts. My question goes back to the gun control and the red flag warnings. Is this going to lead to the no-knock warrants and stuff that, that's a problem? The police coming in on people unannounced in the wrong house. And is it going to lead to, I'm mad at him, so I'm going to call the law and say he's got guns and he's crazy? How are we going to prevent this?
Yeah, this is a great question, and I love that you have brought in what we've learned from the war on drugs, where when we're pursuing people for possession of marijuana, we're knocking down their doors, we're coming in fully armed for war, and very often getting the wrong person in the wrong house, and all too often someone loses their life in the process. So what I learned from that is there has to be extraordinary due process, vetting of the facts. This can't be something that happens solely based on the whim of one person against another person. I use the example of Uvalde, where when that young man who shot those 19 kids and killed them and those 2 teachers and injured many others, the fact that he was sending off signals that he was going to do this, and his friends were picking that up, and not just one friend and not just one person and not just somebody who had a grudge or a grievance, but a lot of people who said, hey, something's not right here. So bad, they started to refer to him as the school shooter. Perfect time to intervene. And one, let's make sure that he gets the help that he needs before he hurts somebody or hurts himself. And I got to just say, if you've got that weapon in your possession that was designed for war and you're threatening to use it against somebody, look, none of us to a person wanted that to happen in Uvalde. None of us to a person wants it to ever happen again in another Texas classroom. I hope all of us to a person understand that it will, unless we change course. And it's not easy. And the Second Amendment, it is something that we hold dear and that we cherish right here in the state of Texas. Most of us, myself included, grew up with firearms in the household, but also understanding the responsibility that comes with owning one of those firearms. We understand almost to a person, there'll be somebody who takes the other side of this argument, but almost to a person, that the Second Amendment is not unlimited. There is no constitutional right that is. The First Amendment, you have freedom of speech, but you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater. The Second Amendment, you have the right to bear arms, but you can't have a howitzer or a bazooka, or after 1934, it is almost impossible to carry a fully automatic machine gun. You used to be able to do that in this country, but we as Americans decided we're going to draw a line right here. How many school shootings have you heard of? Walmart shootings, movie theater shootings, church shootings, street shootings that have taken place with a fully automatic machine gun. Zero. There have been zero. It turns out that our laws can actually work. Now, I happen to believe that red flag law, if we write it on Texas terms by listening to your legitimate concerns about what happens if we fail to do this the right way, that we can make sure that we defend that Second Amendment right while doing a better job of protecting the people in our community. So, to that end, let's look at the states that have implemented a red flag law. Where have they had successes? Where have they had the kind of failures that you just described, which I agree could be possible if we don't take the right steps to prevent it? How can we improve upon those laws that have been written elsewhere to meet our terms and our needs and our values right here in Texas? As you know, the governor cannot do this by fiat. You cannot dictate this. You have to get down to the table and talk to people who may disagree with you and find some consensus and common ground. I am convinced that if we do that, we're going to get there, something better than what we have today and something that protects your rights to keep that firearm in your home. Thanks for asking the question. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have time for 3 more questions, but I do want to acknowledge some folks in the audience. We have Patrick Lloyd. He's a pastor, and he's the NAACP president for Kent County. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
And then we have Leonard Rockwall. He's a former party chair, former SDEC, former district director for Congressman Max Sandlin. Thank you so much.
Good to see you again. Thank you.
All right, here's our next question.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Dan, the one with the good leg. Your so-called weapons of war, how do you propose to take those out of the hands of we the people without turning us into criminals?
Thanks for asking the question. As I mentioned earlier in response to this question about the red flag law, we're going to have to find a way to work together to address these issues. Where I see the greatest common ground right now on AR-15s and AK-47s is to, at a minimum, raise the age of purchase from 18 to 21. I hear Republicans, including the Republican mayor of Fort Worth, including some prominent statewide Republicans, open to the idea of doing that. I listen, most importantly, to the parents and the families in Uvalde, and I've never asked them what party they belong to. Most of them own guns and have firearms in their household. They've seen what happens when that 18-year-old can buy 2 of them and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. So whatever we come up with is going to be the product of listening to one another, finding some consensus and common ground, and being able to move forward. That's the way I'm going to approach this and every single issue as governor. Thanks for being here and asking the question. Appreciate it.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, Monica Collins. I brought my 17-year-old daughter because she was interested in what you had to say as well.
When's her birthday?
December. She won't quite be there. But she's very interested in her future in Texas, so she wanted to hear what you had to say, and she's very interested in women's rights. So we're very happy with what you have to say. A couple of things I haven't heard you talk about and discuss. I do animal rescue, so I'm very interested in the animal abuse laws for Texas, which are almost nothing. And I'm also interested in the environment, which I haven't heard you say a lot about. As far as the future of like solar power and wind turbines and things such as that, what we can do to help, especially like with the blackouts, the rolling blackouts and things such as that we might be going through.
Yeah.
But the animal abuse laws are more what I lean towards.
Great.
As far as my questions.
Let me try to take both of those, and thank you each for coming out.
Sorry, I know
I'm so
that's
glad
two.
you're here.
Sorry.
No, I'm so glad you're both here, and would love to work with you too on these issues. Would love to work with you, even if you cannot vote in this next election because your birthday's in December instead of October or November. On animal cruelty, you probably know this, maybe why you're asking it, but there was a bipartisan bill that was passed to address animal cruelty in the state of Texas. Republicans got behind it, and you need Republicans because they're in the majority in both chambers. Democrats got behind it as well, and the governor vetoed it. I still don't understand the reason why. Maybe you can ask him next time he holds a town hall meeting like this in Pittsburgh. I don't know if he does. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. But we should ask him. So this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. My middle child, Molly, volunteers with the Wildlife Animal Rescue in El Paso, Texas. So that's where she likes to spend her weekends and her after school time. We have fostered some of these animals in our backyard, ducks and pigeons and different things that we've rescued along the way. So I know that we can do better. And again, I know that is a bipartisan value. You're going to find folks all over the state who want to see us do that. Yesterday in Clarksville, I was asked about the FFA programs and how we improve funding. And someone was asking about education earlier, how we improve funding for that. It's so important to who we are, to the livestock that we raise, the food that we produce for the rest of this country right here in the state of Texas, and the crushing leverage that these corporations now have in this state. You think about the fact that there are 3 corporate slaughterhouses, for example. So anybody who is in ranching or raising cattle, you know the margins that you're having to work with right now as your price of fuel and feed and fertilizer all going through the roof right now. We got to do better on that side of the issue as well. When it comes to the environment, understand that as lush and green as this community is, we're also going through an historic drought at this moment. Not too different from what I see in the Panhandle, cotton growing country that produces the fiber that literally clothes the world, the largest cotton patch on the planet, found right there in the lower part of the Panhandle and in West Texas. They're also going through drought. Our friends in Houston, they know what it's like to see the largest rainfall in recorded history in North America drop out of the sky over the period of 48 hours, to see entire homes and buildings and neighborhoods washed away, to see people drown where they grew up and where they were raising their families. We understand and have lived through climate change better than anybody else. And so the question is, what are we going to do about it? We also have the opportunity, being the energy leader of the world, with the expertise, the innovation, the ingenuity that calls Texas home, to meet this moment and provide the answer. You mentioned renewable energy. We lead the country right now in the production of wind. We could expand that, as well as the high-paying, high-skill, high-value jobs that come along with that. We could expand solar, hydrogen, geothermal, battery storage. Not only are these things good for jobs, not only are they great for the climate and confronting climate change before it is too late, not only do they give us pride of place in leading the energy revolution going forward, they're also going to deepen the tax base in our communities. Going to Roscoe, Texas, where the skyline is just dominated by wind turbines. Those turbines pump so much money into the tax base. Every kid in Roscoe, Texas graduates high school not just with a diploma for being 18 years old and completing their senior year, but 2 years of college under their belt, some with the remote FAA pilot's license to do the remote drone inspections on those wind turbines there. So this is for economic prosperity. This is for global leadership. This is for meeting this challenge before it's too late so that we can meet the judgment of our kids when they look back on this moment and say, hey, the window was closing. What did you do? I want to know that you stepped up and did the right thing. That's what we're going to do together here in Texas. Thanks for asking the question. Appreciate it.
Okay, I have two more questions to your left. Okay. Two more questions.
Hi, sir. My name is Guadalupe Garrett, and I live in Mount Pleasant, Texas. And my question is, after you become our next governor, what do you is going to try to protect our borders so the cartels from Mexico and the cartels from the United States don't get rich from these people? They die when they cross the border, just to try to cross the border on the river or in the trailers. They die after they pay more than $15,000 per person in each trailer. And sometimes it's more than 100 people in each trailer. And it's like in the border, nobody see those trailers. It's like invisible, like a ghost, and people die. But the cartels in the United States and Mexico, they get rich from those deaths. So my question is, are you going to try to do something about it, or Texas is going to continue let these people die on the trailers?
Guadalupe, thank you for being here. When you think about who's coming to this country right now, on the one side, there are people who want to come and work. And very often they're willing to take jobs that for whatever reason, no one else is willing to take. I mentioned these cotton growing operations, the cotton gin in Roscoe, for example, 46 jobs in that gin. Not a single one of them is worked by anybody born in Roscoe or neighboring Sweetwater or in Texas or anywhere else in America. You know, folks come into this country sometimes in the back of these trailers for the privilege of doing the work that we need to keep this economy going. It's the people picking the vegetables and the produce and the food that we depend on, working in our slaughterhouses, doing some of the toughest work in America right now. There are others who want to join family members. Their mom or dad moved up here to find work decades ago. They want to be with them. The wait time right now might be 20 years if you get back in the back of the line and do this the right legal way. And then there are others who cannot go back to their home countries because to do so would mean the certain death of their child. Now, Guadalupe just mentioned that trailer where dozens of migrants were found dead in San Antonio. Ask yourself, I was mentioning the power of empathy that we are so blessed to have. What would it take for you to get in the back of that hot trailer? What would it take for you to get in the back of that hot trailer and to reach down and to grab the hand of your 11-year-old son and bring him into that hot trailer with you, and to have those doors closed and to hope that you're going to survive the journey? Now, do you do that for fun? Do you do it for kicks? Do you do it to go steal somebody's job or take their benefits or, give them illegal drugs or to harm them or to kill them or to rape them? Well, of course you don't do it for any of those reasons. You do it because you have no other hope or choice but to do that. So on that side of the immigration issue, if you're coming to work, if you're coming to save your kid's life, if you're coming to join family, there has to be a safe, legal, and quick path to be able to come here. We have to have order where our country meets the rest of the world. We take care of that by rewriting this country's immigration laws in our own image here in Texas, based on our values, based on our needs, based on our communities, based on who we are as a state of immigrants. That's 96, 97, 98. That's 98% of the people who are coming through right now. There will be a safe, legal, orderly path for them to do it. Now, for the remainder who want to bring in fentanyl and illegal drugs, who want to traffic, as Guadalupe just said, in human beings, those are the ones that we must remain vigilant against. And once we've taken care of the 96, 97% who are coming here to work, join family, seek asylum, we're going to be far more effective in deterring them from ever being able to come in to this country. We're going to be able to protect one another far better than we're doing today. What you have at this moment is a governor who prefers stunts, like putting these migrants on buses and sending them to D.C. at taxpayer expense. He prefers shutting down the U.S.-Mexico border to international trade for more than a week, which cost our economy billions of dollars and sent the prices of our groceries through the roof. He prefers involuntarily activating the National Guard, including from communities like this. 10,000 women and men from Texas had not even a week to say goodbye to their parents, to their kids, to their community, to their jobs, to be sent down to Eagle Pass, to Del Rio, to Zapata County, to stand guard without any power to detain or to arrest. And thus far, 8 of them have lost their lives. 4 have taken their lives. 4 more have died under questionable circumstances. None of them, by the way, have been killed by a migrant coming into this country. We can do better. We're spending $5 billion a year right now on these stunts. What about a Texas-based guest worker program that says if you want to come here and work, there's a legal way for you to do it? What about reducing the per-country caps so you don't wait 20 years in order to join your family right now? What about making sure we never see another migrant in another trailer, another kid separated from their parents and placed in a cage? We no longer are defined by the cruelty that we visit upon one another, but the compassion and the kindness that we show by ensuring that folks who come here follow the law, and on our part, we improve those laws to reflect our values. As Texans, I know we can do this. Guadalupe, you've got my commitment. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to get to our last question, but right in front of the flag, I just wanted to orient you. If you'd like to stay and take a picture or say hello to Beto, the line is going to go this way. We'll exit this way.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cano.
All right, our last question.
Hi, Beto. I've met you before in Texarkana a couple of years back. But my question is a Medicare question. And, you know, you spend all your life working and you pay into Medicare, you pay into it. And then when you get ready to have to use it, you find out that you still have to pay a premium for it, even though you've been paying out. So you're not quite prepared that you know you're going to have to still continue to pay a premium out of your Social Security or whatever you're drawing. My question is this, because it's really difficult. What I'm finding is that because Medicare has a deductible, right? It still has a deductible and everything. So when you go to the doctor and you get ready to have something done, you really can't get it done because you can't afford the out-of-pocket money that it costs. So is it anything that we can work towards or something to get rid of that deductible that we have to pay for that? Because it's just ridiculous. You're still not going to get health care because you can't afford to pay for whatever that procedure is, because they say you got to pay this up front. We got to have all of it. So that's my question. Is it anything? I know Medicare is a kind of complicated thing. And also the fact that Medicare has pretty much outsourced it to the insurance companies.
Yes.
And that to me is terrible too, because I'm not so happy with health insurance companies and their process and the way they do. And I don't know, why did they have to do that? Why did they turn it over to the insurance companies, which limits how many providers we can choose from?
Thank you for being here. Thanks for asking this question. You're absolutely right. You paid into this every working day of your life. Now when you're of an age where you're supposed to enjoy that earned benefit, not a handout, not a giveaway, something, again, that you invested in and paid for. If you're unable to use it, not only is that an injustice, but if you defer treatment and preventative care, at some point you're still going to need it. And even if you do not have the resources to pay that deductible or that copay, you're going to take yourself to that hospital. And again, outcomes not as good as they would have been otherwise, cost far more expensive, and all of us are on the hook to pay it. I know you asked about Medicare, and earlier I was talking about Medicaid expansion, but they are related because they're state-federal programs where Texas and the federal government work together. In addition to expanding Medicaid, we absolutely need to reform both of those programs for the reasons that you just described, as well as the reimbursement costs for providers depending on where you are. So in El Paso, for example, same doctor providing the same service to the same patient is paid a fraction of what a doctor in Houston is paid for providing the same service, the same value to the same patient. I bet you the same holds true here in Pittsburg or Texarkana or other parts of deep East Texas. So changing the funding formula, changing the ability to actually afford the deductible or the copay in your case, that's absolutely essential to getting this right. And again, the goal at the end of the day is not easy street for anybody. It's not a handout for anybody. It's to make sure that these programs really work and that you are healthy enough and well enough to continue to contribute to the success of this community. Because here's the alternative. You become too sick because you can't get into that doctor to work. You're no longer able to own that home, pay property taxes. My property taxes go up a little bit more because you're no longer part of the tax base. I lose out if we don't do the right thing by and for you. So I would love to work with you on this one as well. You're right, it's a little complex. It will involve working with our partners in the federal government, but I'm confident that we can get it done. Thanks for asking the question. Pittsburg, thank you for coming out here today. Very grateful to you. Wonderful hospitality. Jay, thank you so much. Amazing. Thank you.